She walked in on her billionaire boss crying in the shower. What he was holding changed everything. Don't miss the end of story. The elevator chimed as it reached the 45th floor, its smooth doors sliding open with a soft sigh. Samantha Hayes clutched her notebook tightly, her knuckles white from tension. The marble floors of Westbrook Enterprises' executive level stretched before her, cold and quiet, like a museum untouched by time. Only the distant hum of the servers and the occasional flicker of city lights broke the silence. This was her 4th week at the company, and yet every time she stepped foot onto this floor, it felt like she was stepping into a different world, a colder one, a sharper one. Her boss, Ethan Westbrook, ruled this level like a king with a frozen crown. Ethan was only 32, and yet he had built an empire worth billions. He was known for his brilliance in tech, his calculated decisions, and his unshakable control. But to the people around him, he was a ghost in a tailored suit, a man with Arctic eyes and a smile that hadn't seen the light in years. He never said good morning, never asked about your weekend, never even looked up unless he had to. He gave orders with the precision of a machine and listened with the patience of a ticking bomb. The office whispered stories about him like children whisper ghost tales at sleepovers. He once fired a manager during Christmas dinner. He hasn't spoken to his own brother since their father's funeral. He doesn't cry, he doesn't laugh, he doesn't feel. But Samantha, who had just moved to New York from Ohio, hadn't come for gossip. She had come for survival. Her mother's medical bills were growing. Her student loans loomed like shadows. This job, no matter how chilling the environment, was her golden ticket out of drowning. Still, working for Ethan Westbrook was like dancing across a frozen lake, every move carefully calculated, every sentence rehearsed. She had memorized his coffee preferences: black, no sugar, exactly 186 stir. She knew when to speak, never first, and when to breathe, quietly. But even Samantha, with all her caution, couldn't help but be intrigued by him. Not just because he looked like a fallen angel in his navy suits and crisp white shirts, not just because he walked like the world bowed under his feet, but because sometimes, just sometimes, she caught a flicker of something else in him, a shadow behind his eyes, a pause in his breath when he looked out the window toward the east side of Manhattan. A sadness that didn't belong to a billionaire. One evening, well past working hours, the office was nearly empty. The skies outside the glass tower turned purple as the sun dipped below the skyline. Samantha had stayed behind to organize some urgent files for a board meeting the next day. She had been told to never enter Mr. Westbrook's private suite unless summoned. But that night a request had come from his assistant's line. "Drop the schedules off in his suite tonight. He's expecting them." So, trembling, she made her way down the long hallway lined with glass walls and steel frames. The hallway ended at a pair of towering oak doors, his sanctuary, the place no one dared to enter. She knocked softly at first. No answer. She knocked again, louder this time. Still silence. She hesitated, heart pounding in her chest like a warning drum. Maybe he had left? Maybe it was a test? Taking a deep breath, she turned the knob. The door clicked open with surprising ease. The room was dark, lit only by the amber glow of the city lights outside. His office was minimalist, sleek, with a view that could steal anyone's breath. But something was off. The air was thick, like it carried a weight too heavy to be seen. She stepped in cautiously, her heels barely making a sound against the polished floor. That's when she heard it, a sound she never imagined would come from Ethan Westbrook, a low, broken sound, sobbing. It came from behind the frosted glass door to his private bathroom. The running water from the shower masked most of it, but the ache in his voice, the ragged way he breathed, it pierced through every wall she'd built to keep her emotions in check. Her instincts screamed to turn around, to pretend she hadn't heard anything, to walk away and forget. But something in her heart rooted her to the ground. And then, with a shaky hand, she reached for the bathroom door, a decision that would change both their lives forever. The digital clock on Samantha's desk blinked 7:52 p.m. in red. Almost everyone had gone home hours ago. The open office floor, once filled with chatter, typing, and the low buzz of calls, had gone eerily silent, like a city after a snowfall. Only the soft hum of the air conditioner kept her company. She glanced at the manila folder in her hands. Ethan Westbrook's revised weekly schedule. She had been instructed to place it in his private suite before the morning. But this wasn't just any office. This was the untouchable 45th floor, and Ethan's private domain was something no one entered unless ordered. Still, the instructions were clear. Samantha stood, straightened her blazer, and walked to the elevator alone. As the lift ascended, she felt a strange pressure build in her chest, an ache, not of fear but of curiosity, and nerves tightly coiled together. The door slid open with a whisper. Dim lights cast long shadows over the hallway. The air was different up here, colder, stiller, as if the very walls knew they were meant to guard secrets. She walked past the modern art on the walls, her heels tapping rhythmically on the polished floors. At the end of the hallway stood the double oak doors, tall, rich, and imposing. The nameplate read, Ethan Westbrook, founder and CEO. She took a breath and knocked, once, twice. Silence. She waited a full 30 seconds, her fingers trembling against the folder. Then hesitantly, she reached for the handle. To her surprise, the door clicked open. Her brows furrowed. Mr. Westbrook never left that door unlocked. The lights inside were off. Only the glow of Manhattan's skyline filtered through the floor-to-ceiling glass windows. The room was hushed, peaceful, but haunted. She stepped inside cautiously, the folder held tightly to her chest. The modern furniture cast long shadows across the room. A coat hung over the back of the leather chair. His phone blinked silently on the desk. So, he was here. Mr. Westbrook? She called softly. No answer. And then she heard it. Not the sound of typing or a conference call, but something much stranger. Sobbing. Soft at first, then deeper, ragged, guttural, painful. Samantha froze in her tracks. The sound came from behind the frosted glass door to the private bathroom. The shower was running. Steam lightly fogged the glass. The sobs were broken, like someone trying to hold themselves together, but failing. She blinked, stunned. For a moment, she thought she was imagining it. But no, it was real. Mr. Westbrook was crying. Panic gripped her. Was he hurt? Had something happened? Should she call someone? Her heart pounded wildly in her chest. Curiosity clashed with fear. This was not a man anyone associated with weakness. Not a man who ever lost control. And yet here he was, breaking. Acting on instinct, she stepped forward. She placed the folder gently on the corner of his desk and slowly approached the bathroom door. Each step felt like trespassing into something sacred. Her palm trembled as she reached for the handle. She whispered his name again. Mr. Westbrook? No reply, just more sobbing. And then something inside her snapped. She pushed the door open. Steam burst out, wrapping around her like a fog from another world. Her breath caught in her throat. Inside, on the stone-tiled floor of the luxurious bathroom, sat Ethan Westbrook, naked, soaked, curled up in the corner of the shower like a man who had fallen from the sky. His broad shoulders shook under the spray of hot water, head bowed, his hands clutching something. A photo, a small, water-wrinkled photograph. She couldn't see the details from where she stood, but she could see his face. And it was the most vulnerable, human, and heart-wrenching thing she had ever seen. His perfectly styled hair was soaked and messy. The water flowed over the sharp lines of his jaw and down his chest, but his eyes, those cold, clear eyes, were now red, swollen, and brimming with years of grief. His lips parted in a whisper, but she couldn't hear the words. Then suddenly his gaze snapped upward. He saw her. Time stood still. Their eyes met. For a second, the world felt like it stopped spinning. The Ethan Westbrook she had known, the titan, the legend, the billionaire, was gone. And in his place was a man, drowning not in water but in sorrow. His voice came out cracked, harsh, raw with humiliation. Get out! It was a command, but behind the anger, she heard something else. Shame, pain, fear. Samantha didn't move right away. She couldn't. She had just witnessed the beginning of a truth far deeper than any schedule or corporate secret. And she would never look at Ethan Westbrook the same way again. Samantha stood frozen, her breath caught somewhere between a gasp and a prayer. The steam from the shower clung to her skin, turning the room into a blurred world of warmth and grief. The spray of the water echoed against the tiled walls, steady and relentless, like the pain in the man crouched before her. Ethan Westbrook was naked, but it wasn't his bare skin that left her stunned. It was the nakedness of his soul. He was curled into himself on the cold tile floor, knees drawn to his chest, arms shaking. His body, usually held with crisp power and confidence, was now folded like a boy hiding from the storm. And in his trembling hands, a photograph. Worn, soaked, and nearly falling apart in the shower stream, the photo clung to his fingers like a memory that refused to drown. Samantha squinted through the mist. It was a black and white picture. A smiling black woman with warm, gentle eyes stood with a young boy nestled at her side. He looked about 8. His grin was wide, innocent, full of sunshine. And unmistakably, it was him, Ethan, the cold, ruthless CEO. Once that little boy. The air shifted. 1,000 questions bloomed in her mind, but none of them could pass her lips. Her heart cracked quietly in her chest. Who was she? Why that picture? Why now? Ethan looked up slowly. His blue eyes, always sharp and glacial, were raw and red-rimmed. They locked onto hers with a force that shattered her every assumption. Rage flickered behind the tears. Not at her, but at himself, the past, maybe the universe. Get out! His voice cut through the fog, hoarse and unrecognizable. But Samantha didn't flinch. She should have. Every instinct told her to leave, to pretend she had seen nothing, to return to being the quiet assistant who knew her place. But instead she whispered, her voice trembling, I'm sorry. I heard something. I thought you were hurt. His expression twisted. Not in anger, in something deeper. Shame. He turned his face away, pressing his forehead against the wall of the shower. The water ran over him like it was trying to wash him clean of something he couldn't name. The photo slipped from his hand and slapped against the tile. Samantha stepped forward on instinct. Her heels clicked softly against the floor as she approached. She dropped to her knees, slowly, gently, like approaching a wounded animal. She picked up the photo carefully, shielding it from the water with her hand. She studied it, heart beating hard. She's beautiful, she murmured. Ethan flinched. Don't, he said, voice low and broken. But Samantha didn't stop. You look happy. A silence stretched between them like a tightrope. And then his voice, cracked and barely audible, answered. I was. He reached out, hand shaking, and took the photo back from her palm. His fingers hovered over the woman's face, brushing the image as though touching her through time. Her name was Lena, he whispered. She wasn't just a nanny, she was everything. Samantha felt her throat close. Her chest ached with the weight of emotion she hadn't prepared for. What happened to her? She asked softly, though she already feared the answer. Ethan exhaled, sharp, heavy, a sound not of relief but of confession. She raised me, he said. More than my own mother. My father hated that a black woman became the most important person in his white, perfect world. He said she was making me weak, teaching me to love the wrong people. So one day, his voice broke. He sent her away. Samantha covered her mouth with her hand, trying not to sob herself. No warning, no goodbye. I came home from school and she was just gone, like she'd never existed, and I... He stopped, emotion rising. I looked for her, for years. But I was always too late, always too late. I found out last month that she died, working 3 jobs in Alabama, still wearing the locket I gave her when I was 9. He opened his fist to show a second photo, this one torn at the edges. It was Ethan and Lena, and around her neck hung a tiny heart-shaped pendant. His voice dropped to a whisper. She never forgot me, but I forgot how to be human the day she left. Samantha's heart shattered. Everything made sense now. The coldness, the distance, The armor he wore like a second skin. He wasn't heartless. He was hurt. And he had built an empire to protect the little boy inside him who still cried for someone who loved him unconditionally. She couldn't stop herself. She reached out and touched his hand, slowly intertwining her fingers with his. He looked down at her, wet, trembling, lost. But for the first time, he didn't pull away. And in that moment, something shifted between them. Not just the lines of employer and assistant, but two souls, one broken, one brave, finally seeing each other. The next morning, Samantha arrived at work expecting termination papers. She barely slept the night before. Her mind kept replaying the image of Ethan in the shower, naked, not just in body, but in heartbreak. She had crossed a boundary she wasn't supposed to. She saw a man who didn't want to be seen. And men like Ethan Westbrook didn't forgive people for seeing them vulnerable. She braced herself as she entered the sleek lobby. Her footsteps echoed too loudly on the marble floors, and every time someone looked her way, she imagined they already knew. But instead of a pink slip or security escort, something entirely unexpected happened. Ethan's assistant approached her quietly. "He wants to see you. Now. 45th floor." Samantha blinked, heart skipping. She nodded and walked toward the elevator, her knees weak. As the doors closed around her, her reflection in the mirrored panel stared back. Nervous, uncertain, but curious. The Ethan she met last night wasn't the man the world whispered about. He wasn't cold. He was lost. When she stepped into his office, the sunlight from the floor-to-ceiling windows flooded the room. The same room that last night felt like a mausoleum now felt strangely warm. He was there, sitting behind his desk, not in a power pose, but leaned forward, elbows on the table, his tie undone, his shirt sleeves rolled to the elbows. His hair, still damp from a morning shower, clung to his forehead in soft, uneven strands. He looked up at her. Not like a boss, not like a billionaire, like a man, just a man. "Close the door, please," he said softly. She did, her palms sweaty. For a moment, silence stretched between them like a drawn breath. And then he spoke. "I thought about firing you." Her stomach dropped. "Not because of what you did, but because I didn't want anyone to see me like that." He paused. "But then I realized you're the first person who's seen me at all in a long time." His voice was quieter than she'd ever heard it. Raw, stripped. He gestured for her to sit. She did, cautiously, her heart beating in her throat. Then he reached into a drawer and pulled out the same photograph, the one from the night before. He placed it on the desk between them like a fragile truth. "Her name was Lena Washington," he began, his fingers resting gently on the image. "She was my nanny. My mother barely touched me. My father only looked at me when he wanted to shape me. But Lena, she loved me, fully, fiercely, unapologetically." Samantha didn't speak. She just listened. Her eyes stayed on him, soft, steady. "My father hated it," Ethan said. "He hated that the black woman he hired to raise his son had become my entire world. He saw love as weakness. He thought Lena was beneath us. One day, without a word, he fired her. Told the driver to take her away while I was at school. She was gone when I got home. No goodbye, no explanation." His voice cracked, but he didn't stop. "I cried every night for months. My father called it a tantrum. My mother ignored it. They acted like she was never there. They tried to erase her." He looked down at his hands. "I tried to find her. I tried again and again, but my father blocked everything. Records, connections, calls. When I turned 18, I started looking on my own. But I was always one step behind." He swallowed hard. "Last month, I got a letter from a church in Alabama. The pastor said she had passed away in her sleep. She'd been cleaning houses, working nights at a nursing home, 3 jobs, no retirement, no family." His hands clenched slightly. "And yet she never sold my name. Never contacted the media. She didn't ask for anything." His eyes flicked up to Samantha's. "She just loved me, and I let her die believing I forgot her." The room fell into silence. Samantha reached across the desk and touched the photo gently. "You didn't forget her," she whispered. "She stayed with you. In your heart. That's why you hurt so much. That's not forgetting, Ethan, that's grief. His breath hitched. He looked at her, really looked at her, and something in his expression softened. A silence passed again, this time less heavy. It wasn't just about pain anymore. It was about understanding. Samantha leaned back, her voice steady. You don't have to carry all of this alone. He blinked slowly. You really believe that? She nodded. Yes, because I've carried grief too. Not the same way, but enough to know it buries you, until someone helps you dig out. His mouth curved slightly, almost a smile, not quite. You're not like anyone I've met before, he said. And just like that, the Ice King cracked again. Not from breakdown, but from warmth. The first fragile thread of something different, something real. She didn't know it yet. But this moment, this small exchange over a photo and a broken heart, was the beginning of everything. Weeks passed, but the memory of that conversation never left Samantha. Nor did Ethan's transformation. The man who once ruled the 45th floor with silence and scowls now entered rooms with warmth, quiet, hesitant, but real. He started thanking employees when they brought in reports. He asked names. He remembered birthdays. People noticed. They whispered in the elevators. He's changed, and he smiled at the receptionist today, like genuinely smiled. But it was behind the closed doors of his office, when it was just him and Samantha, that the real shift happened. One Tuesday morning, he called her in with a strange tone in his voice. He didn't look like a billionaire about to discuss stock movement or merger proposals. He looked nervous and hopeful. I want to do something, he said, placing a folder on the desk. Something that actually matters. Samantha tilted her head. What is it? He opened the folder slowly, revealing sketches, rough outlines, and handwritten notes. I want to start a foundation, he said, in Lena's name. Samantha's heart skipped. A foundation? She whispered. Ethan nodded, his eyes scanning hers, as if begging for silent approval. For women like her. Black women who work as nannies, housekeepers, caregivers, the invisible ones. The ones who raise our children, nurse our elders, keep our homes, and are never thanked. He paused. I want them to have what Lena never did: college scholarships, safe housing, medical care, legal aid, emotional support. A path to something more. Samantha blinked away the tears suddenly gathering in her eyes. That's beautiful, she said. She would be proud of you, Ethan. And for the first time, he didn't look down when someone said his name gently. He didn't flinch. He smiled. Soft. Earnest. They spent the next few weeks working side by side, late nights, early mornings, coffee cups piling up like the blueprints of their growing connection. Samantha had never felt more alive, or more seen. He asked for her ideas, and he listened. When she mentioned a local black-owned nonprofit that supported single mothers, Ethan scheduled a meeting the next day. When she suggested a scholarship fund that could operate nationally, he doubled its proposed budget. Every time she spoke, he didn't just hear her. He believed in her. And somewhere between budget meetings and mission statements, their hands would brush, eyes would linger too long. Smiles turned into silence charged with meaning. But as the plan solidified, resistance emerged. When Ethan finally presented the Lena Washington Foundation to the board of Westbrook Enterprises, the reaction was immediate and bitter. This is too political, said one gray-haired board member with a Harvard tie. Why make this about race? Another muttered. It's off-brand, said a third. It's too expensive. Samantha's stomach sank. She saw Ethan's jaw tighten, his fingers curl into a fist. The same old board, many of whom had worked under his father, still held the reins of the company in subtle, insidious ways. The air grew heavy in the conference room. Eyes darted. Whispers rose. That's when Ethan stood up, slowly, calmly. He didn't slam his fist. He didn't raise his voice. He simply told the truth. My father built this company, he said, his voice even. But he also destroyed people in silence. He destroyed Lena. And by staying quiet all these years, I helped him do it. The room fell still. She was more of a mother to me than my own, And when he erased her, I did nothing to bring her back. That ends now." He turned to the wall where a large screen showed the Foundation's logo, a heart inside a house. Underneath it read, "The Lena Washington Foundation, for those who loved us first." Ethan turned back to the board. "This isn't about politics. This is about people. This is about doing right by those our system has long ignored." A silence hung in the air. Some faces remained stone cold, but others changed. A younger board member wiped her eyes with her sleeve. A retired executive, a black man in his 70s, gave a quiet nod. Another woman whispered, "I'm sorry." And then came the vote. It was close. 7-6, but it passed. Just barely, but it passed. When the final result was read, Ethan exhaled, his body sagging like someone who had carried a 100-pound secret for decades. Samantha smiled through tears. He looked over at her. And in that moment, no one else in the room existed. "Thank you," he said quietly just to her. She nodded, her eyes shining. "No, thank you for fighting." And as the board moved on to the next agenda item, something far more important had already been won. A battle against a broken system, a crack in the armor of silence, a tribute to a forgotten woman, now immortalized in change. The foundation launched with Lena's smiling face on every flyer. Hundreds of women were helped within the first 6 months. Ethan was no longer just a billionaire. He became a symbol of repentance, healing, and change. He and Samantha grew close. He opened up. She saw the man no one else had seen before, kind, brave, and deeply human. One afternoon, Ethan showed her the photo again, now framed and dry. "She was more than my nanny. She was my mother in every way that mattered," he whispered. Samantha smiled. "And now the world knows." They held hands. In a world full of coldness, two people had found warmth in truth, and one broken man had become a voice against the quiet cruelty of racism. Even the coldest hearts can carry the deepest pain. Racism doesn't just destroy lives. It steals families, love, and dignity. But when truth is told, when love is honored, healing begins.